a solid endpoint.
Yeah, definitely.
We should be on.
Are we on now? All right, I'll go throw it around some.
All right, let me tag you. What's that, man? I got ticks on me, man. What the hell?
Oh, you got that ticks on you out there? You better get them ticks off you. They be talking about that line. Everybody's so scared. I had the ticks on me, going crazy about some damn ticks and stuff. You dig me?
Yeah, oh man, craziness happened yesterday. It wasn't a tick. I had a beetle fly in my ear, man.
What? In your ear?
Beetle. I have never in my life had a beetle fly in my ear. The beetle flew in my ear. You know what I think? I think somebody said it was a good sign of luck or something, means the world's going to change. Something like, I don't know.
Yeah, you know that nature talk stuff.
Yeah, the nature talk stuff.
Yeah.
And so the beetle flew in my ear and I pulled it. I was like, what the heck is the beetle? Like, dude, he was trying to dig in there. It was the craziest thing. I think it was a Japanese beetle. That's some racism. I don't know why they call it a Japanese beetle.
Right, they got us some Japanese beetle.
I didn't took the joke. I was like, I had never had that crazy stuff was happening to me. So I had a hummingbird fly in the house.
Oh wow!
I had a bird. I think it was like a finch or something came in and laid a nest in my bathroom. I had a snake in the window. Gardener snake came up in the house. I don't know what the hell is going on.
They saying them chakras opened up.
Hey,
that's what they. I got like that. I got that elevation where they say it's like chakras or something that they talk about. And it's like you open up your chakras, and the nature responds to you in different ways, or whatever the case is. And I don't know too much about that stuff, but that's what somebody told me, because like you said, that stuff that you got going on, some weird stuff has been happening to me as well with like nature and animals. It's like, I don't know what the hell's going on, but I'm just taking it as it comes, like, okay, maybe this is signs, or maybe there's something I need to be paying attention to, because we never pay attention to these things and like with an open mind. We're always like, yo, get the hell out of here, get away from me. And that's how it was. It was like, get out of here. Insects, bugs, birds, bees, anything. Get away from me. But then now it's like, yo, I'm paying attention to this stuff. Is like the essence of beauty of it, but the understanding that maybe they're trying to communicate with us in a certain way that we don't understand, because we've been so trained and wired to just go away from the natural things. But it's interesting, man. That's good signs, though. That's good signs, I think. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I believe it, man. I think that there's just so much we don't know. I think that somebody said Patricia said drones. I think there's so much we don't know. I don't think the Beatles are drones, but I think the planet knows, man. I believe in that Avatar stuff. I believe that all of this stuff is connected, and quantum physics and quantum entanglement. I think the creatures know, the fox and the deer and the bees and the birds. I think they know that we're killing ourselves, and I think they know that we're killing them too. And maybe it's an empathetic thing, but I won't go way too far down that. But I'm glad that you said that, because that's the thing that we have to think about, is we're not as smart as we think we are. Yeah. And this is where we got to get off our high horses. We're on all of these high horses where we're indoctrinated to think we know things. There's no way we could know.
Yeah, that's true. I think no way we can know for sure. You know what I mean? The truth, I guess you could say, of I guess it's not only the daily happenings, but the historical happenings. That's why it's so important for us to try to, come together in love, to actually be able to align ourselves with the proper information, you know what I mean? And with the proper understanding of how to live together, how to live in communication, and just how to live in love. You know what I mean? We're living right now. I feel like we're living on the side of hate as opposed to on the side of love, and it shows on all the organizations and operations of daily society. And I think that has to do with the fact that we don't really truly understand what it means to love ourselves. And it's sad to say that, but it's the way we've been wired. We've been wired to hate ourselves. What I mean? We've been wired to put fake representations on ourselves, and we've been wired to make things and these possessions define who we are. Like money. Money defines a lot of who people are. Without money, people are nobody. Do you understand? Like people without money, people would really be nobody. and they can't deal with that. You know what I mean? But that's what we are. Nobody. You know, we come into this world nobody, but we come into this world somebody. But in terms of possessions and the things, we come into this world lacking things. We come into this world with our mind, with our bodies, with the vessels. I guess, you know, our bodies are like vessels to use our mind. Our mind, it's weird how I've been thinking about this lately, but it's like our minds are the number one thing that we possess. Our minds are what makes our bodies move. You know, our minds are what makes our bodies tick and interact, or whatever the case is. And our minds are interconnected with each other in the universal realm of things. But it's like our minds have been taken away from us, but they haven't, but they've been controlled and wired to be that of the daily system of operations in society. And it shows in how we act, I think. You know, it's so much deeper than that, but it's like, it's crazy.
Yeah. Well, it is. And I think that's a great topic. I'm going to do my best to look at the room and try to let comments drive. We haven't talked in a while. And I'm sorry, brother. That's my fault.
I'm busy. I've been busy, bro.
It's been crazy. Summertime comes, and, you know, like I try to be about it. I don't just try to preach about it.
We'll talk.
Help them. And so actually, even this morning, I got up early because I wanted to talk to you. But I got up early and I was out there cutting grass and stuff. And I'm gonna hit you with something, because I was thinking about this while I was out there. Outside of the fact that grass is the demon, don't get grass. If you don't understand the connection between the war in Syria and Yemen and Israel and Iraq, and if you don't connect all the oil wars with the fact that you cut your grass on a regular basis,
crazy. You know, it's crazy, right?
I wait. Listen. I wait till the last minute. I got to make a meme this morning. But there's a quiet war that's going on between people who get it in these townships and associations, and I push it. I push the limits. Okay. 8 inches, I'm gonna go 8.5. They don't need. I'm gonna go 9. They don't catch me. I'm gonna go 10. When I get my warning, then I'm gonna cut my grass, because you know it's the right thing to do. But people don't connect the dots. But again, like you said, this is indoctrination. It's not just money. But I'm gonna hit you with something. Don't lose that thought. I want to hit you with something. All right. I was thinking about this. I was thinking about allowance this morning.
Okay.
Like, from the very beginning, we teach our kids that they will be somebody, that if they have money, and we reward them for doing work. Like, from the very beginning, we are actually laying in the foundations of a phenomenal slave. Somebody who is nothing. They can't have anything if they don't have money. When you do work, you're supposed to get paid for it. You don't do work because we live here. You don't do work because you're human. You don't do work because they're neighbors and we're a collective and we're all supposed to work together. You do work because somebody's going to pay me. And if I don't get paid, I'm not going to do that work. And so I was thinking about allowance this morning. I mean, part of the reason we live in this apocalypse of adults who are just so daggone greedy. And I'm not talking about the billionaires. I don't talk about them. I don't care about them. I'm talking about the middle class and the upper class. Just so daggone greedy. It's because we're born. We indoctrinate our kids that to get anywhere in the world, you got to make money and you got to get paid for it. And so now the kids today, they won't even do the work unless you pay them. You know, so this whole idea of acting like a collective, it's space cadet to them. Because from the very foundations, we ruin them. And you don't go cut Miss Johnson's grass. You don't go rake leaves from Mr. Bebo. You don't do those things because they're a part of our community. You do them because you're going to get paid. I think allowance is the problem.
Man, that's real, man. That's so real. And that's like how you say it starts early. You know, everything that's been going on in this society has started early. And they know they have to start early for a reason, because that's when the minds are fresh and processing everything around them, you know. And if the mind processes this monetary value system or means of living and means of, you know, services and producing and what have you, that's what the belief will be. You know, the belief in that adult person will be in that monetary system and the monetary value on life, when it never should be, you know, because what adults don't realize is they're co-conspirators in this oppressive system, you know, and it's like we're all co-conspirators in a way because we still spend money, you know, and every day you spend money, you're conspiring against yourself, you know, but that's not what people don't think. They think, oh, I have to spend money, I have to, and I get it because we are in the confines of the system where it's structured on money, but we have to get away from that. Nobody's talking about that. Nobody's saying, oh, we have to get away from that. We have to work together to try to get away from that and make sure that we get our children's minds away from that, you know, because we're perverting our children. You know, everybody's talking about, oh, keep our children away from these freaks and these strange people and this and that. Well, we're sending our people off to these strange freaks and these strange people in the operations of American society. But nobody's talking about it because if you criticize these orchestrators or operators in American society, you'll be judged. You'll be looked at in ways that you're not ready to accept. So it's like I'm taking from like my stance on not voting anymore. I got criticized and judged in many ways, and it's like I don't understand why people would feel the need to go to such great lengths to defend a system that has never really worked for them, you know? And I don't know why people go to such great lengths to teach their kids that they have to defend and uplift a system that has never worked for them. Right. And it's starting to help me come to understand it. Information is key. How you're informed when you're young, it affects how you're informed when you're older. You know what I'm saying? Because like you said, the allowance. I got allowance when I was younger, and I was like, oh shit. And I was taught that I had to work hard for money. My pop was like, yeah, you have to work hard. You got to earn your, because he was really, my pop was in the business America. Like he's still in business and he hates the shit. Like he really hates the shit, but it's all he knows. So think about that. His whole life, he's been wired to be a businessman. You know what I mean? Even if he knows it's corrupt, he knows what they're doing is, you know, fraudulent on so many levels, but he can't do nothing about it because he has structured his life to where he has all these possessions and material things accumulated on the backs of that business that he's been, you know, living. So he paid, you know, it basically is like you're paying a price. You're paying the price for that life you're trying to live. And that price ultimately is your freedom, you know, your free will to just do and live how you want and to teach your kids how they can do and live how they want. You're paying that price to be part of this game, you know, and it's kind of crazy because people know it's a game, but people don't understand that maybe we need to find a way to end the game as opposed to finding the way to master the play of the game. You know, people are like, yo, you got to master the game. You got to master the game. You got to know how to play the game. You got to know how to beat it. But you can't beat this game at all. And there's no beating this game. You can, you know, have small wins. I would say we can all have small wins together, but you're not going to beat this game. All you're going to do is put your family in a deeper hole. Put the next, what we're doing now is this, putting the next generation in a deeper hole. And it's like nature, like you were talking about earlier, nature is trying to tell us something. We don't even know how to listen because we've never been educated on how to interact with nature. Think about that, G. You know?
You know, we don't interact with nature. We don't even interact with ourselves.
Yes,
it's like, you know, it's like one of the things I think about. Got a lot of vegan friends. I'm vegetarian.
Okay.
And I mean, I'm not vegetarian necessarily for the animals. I'm doing it for me. It's for me.
Health.
But yeah, but a lot of my vegan friends, it's about the animals.
Yeah.
And kind of the points I make with them is that, you know, did I just disappear?
No, you're good. I think
I'm good. Oh,
yeah,
okay.
I can hear you still.
and no, I disappeared on mine. They just,
okay.
I went black. That's I'll make a joke later, but but so the thing is, if we don't care about kids around the world, there's no way people are going to care about animals. Like step one is knowing the problem, right? Mm-hmm. No one's going to become vegan and care about saving a cow if they don't care that kids are dying around the world in these different wars.
Right.
So I guess with me, I just wonder, I don't know if people actually know. I think that there are a lot of people out there who just really don't process where we are. I think they really don't process that, The devastation of teaching kids it's a good idea to compete with each other. The links you just said, just living your daily life and how you're supporting this system, how you're propping it up, how it's getting worse. I don't think that, like when you say things, fractional reserve banking, like I was looking at that today, and the fact that every dollar you spend, your kids got to pay back $1 plus down the road, which I think is like $1.04 or something like that, whatever the calculation is. And so literally when you get your ATM statement and you're happy because you see how much money you got in the bank, you're literally cheering. You're excited about the fact that your kids are going to have to pay that back plus down the road. And I don't think they make those links. And so I think there's a group of people who they're not at all exposed to the scam that the bankers did when they purchased America. I think people around the world aren't really aware why America's invading. Like they blame America or they blame Americans.
Yeah, they blame Americans,
Right. And while we have a big portion of the blame because we're not correcting the system, we were scammed. You know? And so, and then there's the people who know that don't care. Like somebody was mentioning on the thread a minute ago, they were talking about MMT. And I'm not an MMTer. Like I try to pay attention to the things that people talk about, but I don't talk it down. And the reason I don't talk it down is because, well, one, I don't know a whole lot about it, but two, the people who are promoting it know that this can't continue. And by far, I have everything in common with people who know that this can't continue as opposed to the people who are trying to continue it. You know, and so, I mean, I'm,
again, that's a good point you made though, because like you said, a lot of people don't know. So even for like, you know, people know that this can't continue. A lot of people know that, but they only know about certain institutions, I would say. So the MMTers, they're like focused on banking. You know, everything's monetary. Oh, all the issues are monetary. And that is a flaw right there because the issues that we're dealing with are monetary, yes, but they're social more than monetary. You know what I mean? Because even with money, we can live beautifully with money, but we're just so messed up in the head and we just so messed up in how we look at money, how we think about money, how we interact about money and the gratification that we think comes from having money. And that's the real flaw, you know, because we've been perverted on money. You know what I'm saying? We've been perverted to think money is God. You know, people don't want to say it, but money is God. In America, in the world, money is God. You go to church on Sunday and on Monday, you go into devil's worship. You know, you go into the devil's camp, which is money. The church tells you not to worship false idols. The church tells you, religion tells you not to, you know, become one with the worldly things. But on Monday, you're becoming one with the worldly things and you're doing everything that your religion or whatever it says you shouldn't. But it's like nature, really. All it is nature. Nature tells us that we need to be doing everything to protect one another. You know, when I thought about something the other day and I was like, it's all about understanding. Love your neighbor as you love yourself. You know, I keep thinking about that lately. Love your neighbor as you love yourself. And I think about what it means. And I think about, you know, how simple, but how complicated it is to just do that. You know, in this society, it's very hard to understand what that means. So it's like people think loving your neighbor as you love yourself means loving the person next door to you. You know, loving the people next door or loving the people that's around you. And that's what it is. Like, yeah, I love my neighbors as I love myself and this and that. And it's like, they're not talking about Americans. You know what I'm saying? They're not talking about Mexicans, Chinese, Canadians, British, French. They're not talking about none. That's not talking about none of that. Loving your neighbor as you love yourself is loving every single thing in existence. That means the animals. That means the plants, that means the water, that means the sky, everything that exists in nature, we're supposed to love just as much as we love ourselves. And when I thought about that, it was scary because you know what I dig deeper to find out? We don't love ourselves at all. You know what I mean? We act as if we love ourselves because we love ourselves how we've been taught to love ourselves. You see that? We love ourselves how we've been wired. And that means We love money. We love the fact that we can purchase stuff. We throw on these clothes and we feel good now. You know what I mean? We throw on these certain clothes and we feel good. We're able to buy this and that. We feel good. You know, this is the love that we think exists. You know, we can buy, oh, I love my neighbor. So when birthdays and holidays come around, we buying stuff for people. You know, we're always, oh, I love this person, so I'm going to buy the best gift that I can find because I love them. But that's not what the love that we need. The love that we need is the truth. You know, that truth and that understanding reigns supreme within the environments that we all live around. Because the love of my neighbors, if it's your birthday, it's your holiday, whatever the case is, I'm going to tell you about yourself some shit that you don't want to hear. You know what I mean? I'm going to tell you, like, you're doing something foolish and you don't want to, because we've been wired to be offensive. When somebody criticizes us or somebody says something about us, we're wired to be offended. And that's because we haven't never understood that it's okay for people to criticize us. You know, it's okay for people to maybe lay judgment upon us. It's our duty to react and love back. You know what I mean? It's our duty to not react and hate and be They taught us to be reactionary. And this has been years in the making, but you see the evidence of it because of the Donald Trump, Hillary Clinton's, whatever you have, politics. You see how they have created this reactionary mind frame and mentality in all people, you know? And think about this. They're teaching us to teach our kids how to be reactionary, bro. And it's scary. Yeah. It's so scary.
But it's so obvious. It's scary, but it's so obvious. Like it's insane. Like actually, I just left a good conversation with a neighbor of mine. We were talking about, you know, because everyone's on this hate Trump train. And Ty has some good videos early this week, some good streams about it, which is, you know, we're so lost fighting demons that, you know, that they're willing to keep us all in hell. Mm-hmm. That's really what it comes down to. They're so lost in fighting people, they're not fighting a system.
Right.
And this is kind of the deflect, like you talked about. In fact, someone posted about how we're all one, right? It's about consciousness and reestablishing who we are and what we are, because we forgot what we are, you know. And so that first step in realizing all of our big problems are all fixed in the mirror. That's number one. Like all of our problems are our problems. The generations before us, they solved their own problems. They didn't run the government. They didn't run the political parties. They didn't run to people who don't know any of us to solve problems. They went to their neighbor to fix the problem. So I think that's number one, is adults acting like adults and solving their own problems. What's up, Carter?
This boy's funny, man.
What did Carter say? So I saw something you posted the other day. Carter said, I was like, about commercials. Like,
we
were talking about commercials, and I'll prelude it. So we were talking about TV, and I think the post was something about. I say stuff, man. Half the time I forget what I said, but it was about, you know, when you're watching television. You know, the commercials are the most dangerous thing, right? Like the show is bad. Most of them are, but there are some good shows with good messages hidden in them. But the commercial is where they put the most bang for their buck. They put most of their money into the commercial.
Yes,
right?
Yes,
you know, because that's where it's teaching you. Like, if you don't know anything about Edward Bernays and the Council on Foreign Relations and Hollywood and how they get you to become a consumer and buy things you don't need. And so that was the post that it was about. And how the commercials, you got to be careful. You know, you want to turn them off, silence them, walk away. I had a girlfriend once, man, and the commercial would come on. She was from China, and the commercial would come on, and she'd mute the television.
Oh, right, smart.
I know, but it's smart to me back then. I was like, it's weird.
What you doing? I'm talking about that.
It's Colgate, man. I was kind of like, why you turn off my commercials? You know. And I thought I was like, you're weird. Something's wrong with you. And come to find out that the commercials where the significant brainwashing comes in. So anyway, so I was impressed with Carter. What did Carter say about commercials?
He said, "Dad, you watching the commercials, you burnt out." Because I always get them. When I let them watch TV, I don't like letting them watch TV a lot. So when I do, I'm like, "Yo, don't watch the commercials. Stop watching the commercials. Why are you focusing? And he's like, and you know how kids are. They know how to get kids. And I'm in there, I'm like watching Carter. I watch all the kids, but I can't tell. I can't talk to all the kids like that. I'm like, yo, what are you doing watching the commercial? They got you. You trapped. They done brainwashed you. They done got inside your head, and you love it. Though I'm grinding them up. I'm like, you love it. You done this sucked you in. You gonna buy that, ain't you? He's like, yeah, I want to buy that. I want to buy it. And this is like a year ago or something like that. He's like, yeah, I want to buy that. I like it. What do you mean? It's cool. I'm like, yeah, they got you. You burnt out. Every time I get them now, you burnt out. So now when the TV's on and he sees me watching commercials, he hits me with the same thing. He's like, Dad, why'd you watch the commercial? You're not supposed to be in this. Yeah. And I'm like, no, I'm not watching the commercials, Carter. I'm looking at the fuckery that's going on behind what the commercials are doing to people. You know what I mean? His mind doesn't understand how to process that yet, but that's what we have to work on. See, it's like this. They're working on the kids' minds right now while we're distracted fighting each other. They love it. We're fighting each other over politics. We're fighting each other over events that happen in the world. And they're on the full throttle attack against the next generation. I mean, I see it everywhere. All the kids I see, I try to look and understand if maybe, they might be getting the right information, or if maybe they, have a proper understanding of certain things that are happening, and they don't. The kids are lacking understanding because a lot of the adults, like their parents, the influences they have around them are lacking understanding as well, because entertainment, TV, entertainment, money, work, all these things consume our time,
They do. Maria just posted something, and I noticed this, and it's blowing me away. And she meant louder, not looser. Mm-hmm. I noticed this. So I don't watch television. My television, it just holds up dust for the most part. Okay. But I watch the laptop stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the laptop. Whoa.
Have you ever noticed when the commercials come on, it's louder than whatever volume you set the program to? Yeah. And the other thing is, you can turn the volume down, you can mute the program, whatever you're watching, but when the commercial comes on, you can't mute it, you can't turn it down, and it tends to be louder.
Right.
And now, mind you, it's advertising, right? It's how economics and all that stuff. But the point is, it's really showing where the significant damage is done. Mm-hmm. And the whole point of the programming is to get you to buy something, whether drugs or cars or whatever. Yeah. And all of this is what enslaves us. Mm-hmm. All of this is what, and this is why, brother, a community that's starting to grab me.
Okay.
I pretty much is the minimalist community.
Okay. What's that? What do you mean by that? Like, what's the minimum? The minimum, less is more, right?
Right. Well, minimalism. So there are people who do it. And to be honest with you, from what I've seen, has kind of been co-opted. It's about spending less, right? Mm-hmm. It's about, we have too much junk. We buy stuff we don't need. Before we finish using what we got, we buy something else and throw that away. Yep. And this is what the commercial does in this planned obsolescence, in this scarcity and unsustainable society, and getting people to buy a bunch of crap they don't need. Mm-hmm. But that's what enslaves us. And so minimalism is about basically not spending unless you have to, right? It's about, a lot of minimalists, they'll have 3 shirts, they'll have 5 pairs of pants, they'll have, very clean houses. But, the thing that I noticed a transition in minimalism about not being so wasteful, going back to being how our grandparents used to be, a lot smarter than we are. Mm-hmm. But it's turning into just not having a lot of stuff, where you got like an empty house, you got, pretty much, nothing, one lamp in a room and one table and one sofa. Right. And so it's like, it's becoming this design, I want to say almost phony, I don't want a lot of stuff type of mentality. Okay. And to me, that's wrong. Okay. And it was wrong for me. Let me say this, because my whole embrace of minimalism is about not buying the crap that enslaves people in the third world. That's that forced labor in South America, Africa, wars in the Middle East, and even in our country. Right. So for me, it's about not spending. It's not about being organized and having a pretty living room, right? Having minimal stuff. And that's what seems like these cable shows talking about minimalism have become. I prefer what our ancestors did for minimalism, right?
Okay.
They were minimalist because they were poor.
Mm-hmm.
They were minimalist. They didn't throw things away. They kept them and they repaired them. And so for people thinking about becoming minimalist, I'd encourage you, don't throw all your stuff away to join a community. You might need that stuff later. Like having the stuff is important.
Yeah, it could come in handy.
Right. It's about not buying a bunch of crap that you don't need. And that's the message I stick. I try as much as possible to stick to our ancestors' message, not the current modern, because everything is co-opted, it seems, and it's tweaked for Hollywood.
Yeah, that's true. Everything's co-opted because that's how America works. They co-opt everything. They co-opt the struggles a lot too, because the easy thing that they do co-opt is information, because if they get behind it, they can make it credible, you know what I mean? And they can make it a thing. And that's what America does. Oh, we're behind this, so it's a thing now, you know what I mean? But the minimalist thing, I like that a lot because I'm trying to understand a little bit more about it. And I was just like that for my whole life anyway. Like I'm cheap, I'm frugal. No, hold on, sorry. Don't do that. That's not for the slime. You play with the slime with regular stuff that's not cloth, okay? Because slime doesn't go with cloth. It's going to get it dirty. So be a little bit smarter than that, all right? But the minimalist thing is like, I've always been minimalist, but I've been trying to force myself to be something that I wasn't, trying to buy the things that I don't need because that's what I've been taught to do. I've been trying to buy the clothes and the things that I thought I needed because that was cool to do, you know what I mean? But then I realized and looked deeper within myself was like, I never was that. And I've been trying to fraud for people that don't even really wouldn't, love me for me, really. That's what it comes down to. Loving me for me is I love myself for me. And that's how I come, you know what I mean? So we have to start to understand that we can't let society or the world dictate what we appreciate. We can't let the world dictate what we should like. We can't let it's like role models too. They throw a role model in a commercial and you're like, oh, he's wearing that, so I'm going to get it. You know what I mean? But it's like, okay, he's wearing that because he got paid millions to wear it to sell you. They're selling you, and your favorite actor, your favorite entertainer is part of the sell. They don't care about the products. They only care about the check. You know what I mean? And it's simple mathematics. We are being fooled by a lack of understanding, but communication about history. You talked about the ancestors, and I don't think they were poor. You know what I mean? I think they were rich in the sense of they knew who they were and they knew what they may have needed. You know what I mean? They may not have the technologies that we have now, whatever the case is, but I don't think they needed those technologies the way they were living, because they lived together. They were living in the way that they knew what abundance was. Abundance wasn't having all these different possessions and things and materialistic stuff. Abundance was having each other and having the ability to innovate and grow together, and teaching the young from the old, the truth. You know what I mean? Not they weren't teaching the young misinformation like, oh, we're going to sell you this dream, kids, and believe in this fairy tale, believe in that fairy tale. No, they taught stories, okay? Not fairy tale. They start stories that were maybe lined up with the natural things that happen in the world. You know what I mean? And it wasn't in a way that you could just, I don't know, like, how Disney teaches these kids now and brings out emotions and brings out all these different feelings from the kids. The ancestors was teaching kids strength. You understand what I'm saying? Strong, be sound, be not deceived. They were teaching the kids not to be deceived, to understand what deception was and to know how to react to that. Now, all the kids are deceived by money because the parents are deceived by money. Their parents were deceived by money. But that's what the history of how, all this has accumulated, I guess you could say, because this is the accumulation of a whole bunch of deception. And it's not even just money. It's religion. It's education. It's medicine. Think about medicine and how many people can't even grasp medicinal, natural, holistic remedies because they're so brainwashed by American civilization, saying that you have to believe your doctors, you have to believe what the Americans told you about everything to do with health, or else you're just a dummy conspiracy theorist and you're going to die. You know, that's what people get scared of. Like,
but it makes sense though, right? So, like, so that gets back to the commercials, and that's why they're so effective, and it's why they did it. They knew how to brainwash people. They knew that they could co-opt any tradition you had from your people, things, and you're right, I used the wrong word. It's poor by today's standards.
Yeah, by today's standards.
Rich.
Yeah.
Right. It's rich by
nature.
It's like, I think Jay just said it. He said, if you're poor in spirit, you're rich in material.
You're still poor.
You know, you're still poor.
That's true.
So the thing is, but they through commercials and television and modifying society, social engineering, they've taken and redefined what success is. They've taken and redefined what poor and rich are. And so now you have a generation of people who think poor financially is a bad thing. Right. During the generations in the past, they never thought poor financially was a bad thing. In fact, if you go back far enough, they hated banks. They wanted nothing to do with the bank or putting their money. They put their money in the mattress because they seem to understand and get it. But they buy this, or not they buy, they co-opt it because they have the commercials. Right. Because, you know, it's not that the people who are like really bought into the system are dumb. It's just that they're being brainwashed and they don't know. And this is why I think you can turn the volume down on the commercial, and I don't think it actually matters. I think they brainwash us. That's what I do, man. It's crazy. Yeah, go with me on this. So
I'm listening.
You remember back when they had? I used to go to the drive-in movies. That's how.
Okay.
I am.
Okay.
But what they used to do is they would play popcorn ads. Right? What they would do is they would strip out, and they got caught doing this. They would strip out one frame and they put popcorn in between the movies, the movie scenes. So while you're watching the movie, you're watching Luke Skywalker fly across the screen fighting and stuff, and you're like, man, I want some popcorn. This is what's happening because your brain is picking up.
It's the ping. It's the ping.
Right. You're right. Your subconscious mind sees the popcorn, but your conscious mind isn't registered. It can't see it. It's following the movie. And so now everybody's getting up, going to get in the popcorn, going in the concession line to get a whole bunch of popcorn. And I believe that, you know, the way they used to work, they still work today. Wherein when you're watching television, it's digital, right? Through the sound that you hear and through what's played on the screen, they can definitely program you to love all this and be okay with this. Like, think about shopping. Like, when did it ever become a wonderful thing to arrogantly go out there, take all this money you've been working hard for, and spending it in a mall, and it was a great thing to walk out with 4, 5, 8 bags of stuff. And this is a good thing because I'm out with the girls shopping. I think what's happened, and largely it tends to be women, and I don't know why that is, but it's a social thing. I think they abuse, and I'm thinking through this. But I think they've somehow, because it's not, I don't think it's the spending money that a lot of women enjoy. I think it's the social aspect of being with friends and shopping and perhaps getting new things that you don't have to fix. Maybe because the husband stopped fixing them.
The husband stopped fixing, right.
Fixing them. Or it's not clean, and so she wants something clean. But I think they abuse that sociology. They know that women need to do things in groups because they've always done things in groups. Men, you know, we evolve. We tend to be the hunter-gatherer. We'd off and go hunt. We divide up or whatever. But the women tend to stay at the hut, at the tent, at the whatever, and make sure that the kids are good, cooking, cleaning, fighting off any bears that come around, whatever. But they were together, and so they evolved this need, perhaps, to be more social, maybe, than what we are. I don't know, and I'm thinking through this.
Okay.
You know, as an evolutionary thing, it's not anything I believe. I don't want to for anybody. Right. You know, everybody's different. You know, everyone's different completely. So because you're a woman doesn't mean you have this. Because you're a man doesn't mean you won't. Because I know a lot of men who like to go shop and they buy.
The
same thing.
I know men who like to shop more than females, brother. Men who like to shop more than females.
But they've taken this need we have for social interaction, camaraderie, and fellowship, and linked it in with consumerism, ignorance, the slavery and forced labor, and spending money. And that's how they play us. I think they're always taking our evolutionary, evolved things that we need, and they're getting us to take whatever we earn and throw it right back at them.
That is true. That is true. And somebody said, Ellen said something that's beautiful. And this is something I believe truly. She said, woman shot because of a feeling of emptiness. And that's true. That's so, this is what it is, right? It's so
Ellen
hurtful.
Is a bad mama jam. Ellen,
that was a beast.
Ellen, oh my goodness.
But that's hurtful, bro. That's so hurtful because you know why? It's true.
It is
so true.
Oh,
because like, I'm gonna tell you why. Women had been told to, you know, women hold a love that I don't think men hold. And this is kind of scary to say this, but I think it's only, no, not only, but I think it's because of the birthing aspect or the life aspect, you know, the giving of life aspect and the connection that they have to every single last being that are on these lands. This is not just human beings. This is animals as well. They have a connection to all life that is something that we as men may never understand because we aren't wired to understand that. But we're wired in a way to, you know, mesh with that. You know what I mean? To work with that understanding and love that they have. But American society, European colonial societies, and the history of psychology has taught men. See, men have studied and men have observed and men have done experiments. Women also, but throughout history, they have done experiments to understand how females are wired and think, and also understand how men are wired and think. And they realize that the advantage, this is the real advantage that I think men ultimately banked on throughout history, is the physical presence. Okay, the physical presence dominated the superiority of who's who in this modern society because the mental presence we were much more inferior to women when it came to the mental presence. You know what I mean? Because I think females are able to process and understand things from a much more caring place inside than we are as men. But we have allowed, this is society, we have allowed for women to be displaced, disenfranchised, and underrepresented for who they are as far as nature, you know? And this aligns with money. This aligns with information, education, and a whole bunch of different aspects of American society that we're told to embrace. Any female, any woman that is proud to be an American in any way, shape, or form, it is wrong because it is scary. Because American civilization has launched an assault on the female. They have launched an assault on the woman. They have launched an assault on the man and child. But I think it's more of the woman because guess what? In order for men to stay in power, they have to continue to divide the people up from understanding history. You know, men weren't always in control and in power in history. They weren't always like, they want us to believe that, oh, men ran everything. Men are more civilized because women, they have this emotional state that they can't get around and, you know, contribute in effective ways. And it's all bullcrap. You know, it's all bullcrap. We overplay into the, what do they call that again? I forget, PMS and all that, you know what I mean? The periods and all that. We overplay into that in a way that we lack understanding when it comes to that as men. Because as men, we're told to just, distance ourselves from a female because she's on her time. It's that time of the month. Get away from her. And she's crazy. And that's what it is. And women they're taught that they're crazy. They're taught that they have to feel pain and they buy into it when we could have had a way to solve this monthly period cycles for not only women, but the young woman that just experiences it and goes through an emotional phase. Like, this is crazy because that's why I know they're on attack against the youth. The emotional phases that, like puberty, I guess they call it, they made the name, it's puberty. I don't even like that term, you know what I mean? But that's what we know it as. But that period of time, that transition from men and women is heavily in lack of understanding of each other. You know what I mean? The men are taught to lust after females at this age in a way that they're not catering to the motherly mentality that every female has. You know, every female has this motherly mentality, but we're taught that we have to let women. It's kind of weird in society. I get it. Let people be who they want to be. Let people be whoever they are, and this and that. And it's like, I get it, but we have to empower each other from the natural, you know. And it starts from understanding that we have been lied to about who we really are. We all have been lied to about who we really are. That's even, and when it wasn't painful for me, it was just like an aha moment for me, because I realized black, white, the biggest lie that's been continuing that should have been ended. This should have been ended way long ago, black and white. But people can't seem to get out of black and white because that's all they've known. They've been wired to really truly think that they have to be against. It's like this. I'm black, and I know the history of what America has done, colonials, not the entire history of the, world, because this could be thousands and 10,000s of years old, but I understand the current and attached history to it. And I'm not black. But when I say something like that, people are offended. Black people are offended because it's like, oh, you're wrong. You're not representing who you really are. And, this and, that. And then I think about it, I'm like, that's what America told me to represent myself as. That's what the colonial mentality told myself to represent. So that way I divide myself up from people. So it's like when I say I'm American, it's again the colonial mentality. I'm dividing myself up from people that may be Mexican, Chinese. And it's like we're playing this game because we don't understand who we truly are. You know what I mean? We don't understand. But when we need to educate ourselves and figure out who we are, we're too worried about politics. We're too worried about events and all these different distractions about this happened and that happened. And it's not contributing to the collectiveness of gathering the proper information that will get us out of this. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So a couple things there. So, and Ellen sent us down a real deep path. This
that was deep.
This is deep. So, right. So, coming from the fact that, men unfortunately tend to ignore their wives, and I don't want to exclude the gay, our gay community.
Yeah, you can't.
Because I think there's all different types of spectrum of male, female, in the middle. Like we like to put things in boxes. It's easier to talk about that in that way, and it's easy for them to control us in that way. Mm-hmm. So I'm kind of speaking from my perspective. So Debbie mentioned, it's about empowering. Right. Yeah. Like it is about men and women empowering each other. Like we begin, talking about, neighbors empowering each other, building communities. You can't have a strong community if you don't have a strong family. You don't have a strong marriage. But it's also about empowering your kids, right? Taking them away from the TV, taking their commercials, all of that nonsense. It's probably about understanding DNA too. Somebody was talking about DNA. So
that's another scary, brother.
I'll tell you. Yeah, I'll tell you. It's funny. I say stuff as much as I can. I really don't say that I'm black or African American or I'm Christian or anything like that, because I honestly, I don't identify with any of those groups anymore. I realize now that is a human farming thing. And I've been, at least for probably about a year now, I've been trying to say those things that are damaging, that cause problems, because anytime you put yourself in that community, the other side jumps in another community, right? Or they feel attached, and so if you get that these things don't exist, genetically, because I was thinking about this morning, like you can just go with the race thing, and I hate going down this road, but I think it's still a topic, so you have to touch it, which is if you call yourself, a white, a black, or ethnicity, what you're actually doing is you're calling yourself by colonizers' definitions of a timeline what you are. And I'm against every idea that colonizers have. I'm completely against it. When I say colonizer, like I always clarify, it's not a colored people, it's not a nation. Everybody tried to colonize everybody, and certain people were better at it because they put cannons on a boat, and so the thing is that for me to say these things, to say I'm a part of this ethnicity or this race or this whatever, it basically means that I'm agreeing with people who enslaved a whole lot of people and murdered a whole planet, that I am going back. My ancestors started at 1322, wherever I was at that point. And that is insanity to me. I don't know why anybody would want to embrace what these evil people are putting down. Don't even pick it up.
Real talk.
Don't teach your kids.
Don't teach your kids.
But this is what I'll say. So I am black on occasion. I'm be real with you. Because y'all people, y'all
got to be real. No, be real, G. You got to be real.
Got to be real. Here's the deal. I can't critique the Black community unless I'm in it at that moment.
Yeah, real talk.
I can't critique the Christian. I'm Christian sometimes too.
I can't be Christian sometimes.
The Christian, because you know what? Let me tell you what it does. Because I mean, my whole belief on the religions and stuff, like I don't believe what most Christians believe. I think they've gotten off the boat and they went too far down and they're worshiping the Bible and stuff like that. But I believe this Christ thing was real. But the thing is that when you are a part of their community, when you're talking to them, it disarms them and they can hear what you're saying. Mm-hmm. But if you're perceived a part of a different community, you're Muslim talking to Christian, they're already ready to fight, you know? And so I think, I mean, the few times I actually even kind of laugh about it and I'll be in the community, it's for a moment because I'm trying to talk to them and I'm trying to elevate, you know, if anything, where they are in terms of, you know, I don't want to get too deep into energy and vibration, but I think it does get back to that. I think it does get back to really what we're doing is we're trying to elevate people back to being people. We're not people right now. We're cattle. And we're trying to get them out of this shopping, commercial, manism, womanism, racism, all of these isms, nationalism, and get them back to being what our ancestors were.
Right.
Awesome. All of us, all of the cultures because it evolved over thousands of years and we became these wonderful social creatures that didn't need money and didn't need to kill each other to survive. We could take care of ourselves. And we've been walked into being these babies that require war, constant coddling. And so I don't want to go into a rant, but I'm going to bring it back to what Ellen said, which is powerful. That's why I always say that our biggest problems are always in the media.
Yeah,
always.
It seems like it. Right?
Well, no, I'm sorry, not media. Always in the mirror.
Oh, I see.
Our problem.
The one behind me.
Is it right? It's right there. Every single problem we have, it's right there because. So when you look at women, say, okay, so why do women love shopping? Man, we suck. We suck. We did that. We did that.
It's at the core.
We go to the bar. We go hang out with the buddies. We got the card games. Like you go and you marry somebody and you say, you know what? I want to spend my life with you. I want two to become one. I want us to be this. And you know, because I laugh at it. Because men are the ones who like say, I was tricked. She got me to the church. And I got married. And she tricked me. You know, and in ways we do trick each other. But
in a way you already know.
But a real damaging thing is that you commit your life to somebody. Oh man, we might even get into the marriage topic. But you commit your life to somebody,
bro,
and you flip the script on them, and then you go hang out with your buddies. She's lonely. She needs to do something, so she hangs out with the girl. They don't want to go to the bar. You go to the bar, and they got to get picked up on by all these dirty guys. Stupid. So you get together with your girlfriends and you go shopping.
What else we gonna do? Oh, let's go to the mall. Let's spend some money. Let's do this and that. We ain't got nothing else to do. Ain't nothing better to do.
Right.
We ain't going to the community and planting flowers and gardening and shit.
The man don't want to do that.
The man don't want to do that.
But you know what's funny? What was funny, that used to be us. The gardeners used to be the men, the farmers, the ones planting, and now men are scared to get their hands dirty because they don't want to get the dirt under their fingernails. Right. And so, but I think everything could, so we could sit here and we could say, yeah, women did it. You know, women, y'all need to stop shopping, stop spending my money. And what we really need to do is in every situation, always look in the mirror. Always look in the mirror and say, you know, what is my part in this? What is my part? And see if I can fix it.
Right. And that's what we have to do. We have to try to do what we can to fix the things that we have going on around us. And we have to also, it's like daily, we have to be in repair of ourselves, but daily, we also have to be in repair of the environments that are around us as well, because it's not only the environments, but it's the people that are around us as well. You know what I mean? We have to help people because people think that a life full of nothingness is life. You know, that's what I realized that it is. Like we are told to have and celebrate and enjoy a life full of nothingness, you know what I mean? And the things we accumulate, the things we celebrate in the terms and the natural existence of the realm of who we really are, it's all nothing. You know, oh, I graduated college, you didn't, you're dumb, I'm educated. That's bullcrap. You know what I mean? Because you're celebrating nothing. You graduated from American institutions of education, which is more than 50% indoctrination. You know, there's some good information inside of that indoctrination, but you're not really zeroing in on it, you know, because they're teaching you in a way that they want you to be a worker, or they want you to be a crony for their operations. And that's what we all are. We're cronies. You know what I mean? We've been from birth. Like my son, I'm in a constant fight with him these days against the battles of what they're trying to do to his mind. And it's scary because think about the parents that don't understand what they're trying to do to their children's minds. The parents that are letting their kids go all up in it and saturate themselves on the phones, technology, TV, because they don't understand. And they have led us to the point like we have to do everything we can to empower each other. We have to do everything we can to uplift each other. We have to do everything we can to properly see to it that we're all informed the right way. You know what I mean? Because everything that leads to changing the next generation cycles and the future generations comes down to information. We have to be properly ready to inform one another. And we also have to be ready to just admit that we've been following the wrong information. You know, it was hard for me to admit that. I'm like, man, this can't be true. You know what I mean? CNN has to be real. CNN can't be fake. You know, and this was just politics, regulation, but CNN can't be fake. And then it's like, wait, the banks? I can't trust the banks. Oh shit, oil? I'm putting oil in my car, and the oil thing. I had to sell my car because I'm every time I'm at the gas pump, I was feeling guilty. I'm at the cattle going to work. I'm feeling guilty at the gas pump. I'm like, God damn, I'm pumping, and I'm doing this. I had to travel for work, so I said I had to sell my car because I couldn't deal with that conscience. It's on my conscience every day. It's like I know what's happening to the children for this oil to go on my car. And like you said earlier, for the oil to be pushed on the lawnmowers, you're pushing the lawnmower and you're thinking it's all fine and dandy. Like, yeah, I want a manicured lawn, but you're supposed to have a natural lawn and you're supposed to try to do as much as you can not to use the fucking death-laced oil that they, you know what I mean, have all over the place. And it's hard because we have to collectively change the pace. Yeah, we're about to go now, but yeah, but he's ready to go, G. We got to do part 2 of this. We have to do a part 2.
Yeah, let's do a part 2. I'm gonna finish dumping out some thoughts to the people, right, cool, man. Cool. So go ahead, take them to do the soccer.
I love all y'all. Thank you all for tuning in.
Thank you for jumping in.
You know, I'm sorry that we didn't get to finish the discussion because we got some really good points, G. We got to talk about a lot. And you know, the marriage thing comes down to possessiveness, and we have to talk about that possessiveness thing because that's another one thing that got us trapped in. But yeah, I love y'all. We just got to work together to empower each other, but also, you know, continue to look in the mirror, continue to evaluate yourself and make sure that you can fine tune yourself to be able to let the fear go so that way you can act in a new way. You know, that's what we have to do. Let the fear go of what others might think. Let the fear go of what the people closest around you may think. Act in ways of love. Act in new ways when you're communicating with people that you never communicated with, where you're helping people that you never thought you would help. But we have to do everything from like the lower level to change the pace on the massive scale, you know, because we have a lot of forces working against the messages that we share, you know, which is just love and truth, really, and unity. Right. And we have to do everything we can to continue the message so that way the younger generations can hear it. Because, you know, I think that we're not really able to reach a lot of the young people because they haven't bought into this message yet. You know, they've bought into like the radicalness of it, which is like, yo, fuck the systems of oppression and this and that, but they don't understand how to act in the right ways to, you know, get the things that we need to get done. So we have to continue the message, but continue to talk to the youth, continue to talk to the old and everybody around you. I love y'all. Thanks, G, for having me on.
Yeah, man. We'll see you.
All right, see y'all. Have a good day.
All right. So, I don't know. I think Emrys is around. Actually, I sent him a link. If anybody wants to jump in and finish the conversation, you can jump in. Just send me a message. But highly important. Very, very deep topic. Very deep topic that it always comes down to us. It always comes down to us. We always got to look in that mirror and determine, what is my complicity in this, whether it's marriage or anything involving another human being interaction, deal with your stuff, right? Don't help somebody deal with their part. You deal with your stuff. Somebody just said something. I forgot what sister it was about. Farmers are some of the smartest people I know, and me too. Why are farmers some of the smartest people we know? And I think it's because they still have an evolutionary aspect that we don't. They still have that tie to not being able to embrace ignorance, right? Like if you're a farmer, you still operate on critical thought, right? You have to put your seed in. You have to rotate your crops. You have to do certain things. I'm not really talking about so much of a chemical farmer. I'm talking about more of the ones who watch nature and know the environment. They've got tasks that they have to do. And so they're a community that's still utilizing significant amounts of critical thought. Wherein if you live in this artificial society where you can be a complete idiot, utilize no critical thought and be successful. You can have a job, nice car, drive around. You can hate everybody. I know some people that hate everybody. They just hate everything, hate everybody, complain about everything. And they are, from a financial perspective, they are very, very successful. Because we built this fake, phony world where people who have nuances that would never have made it in the past can thrive today. Because critical thought isn't required. All that's required is you go to school, get a degree, get a job. You could hate everybody. You can be a sociopath. You can be a psychopath. You can be narcissistic. You can be all those things that were never allowed in evolution. You can be ignorant. You can ignore the truth. You don't, and you can thrive. And so one of the things I was thinking about today also was truth. Why do people hate the truth so much? Truth is such an attachment to evolution. You can't evolve if you don't know what's true. You can't survive if you don't know what's true. You can't get better if you don't know what's true. You can't make a better future for your kids if you don't know what's true. And I'm not talking about just your truth. I'm talking about your universal truth, like what is true. Half of the truth is a lie. And so knowing the truth that exists in other communities, and I think this is where the censorship really comes in. This is why all these things are being attacked all over the place, because they don't want you getting attached to what's true. When you know what's true, you can build a better world. They can't rape and pillage and get everybody into these forced labor jobs and careers if we actually talk about what's true, which is we're all in a forced labor society. So I think it's a real deep thing. Not enough chlorine in the gene pool. Ooh, James Logan. That's a little deep, brother. That is deep. We don't have enough chlorine, right? Because now you can be sick psychologically and thrive. There is no culling of the herd. There's no chastising of the herd, right? You can be completely foul and be popular and successful. Like, look at Hollywood. You can be a pedophile. You can be a rapist. You can be anything you want to be and still make an awful lot of money. In the times in the past, like Brother James was saying, chlorine would have dealt with you in the past. If we were still going back then, you would not have made it. There would not have been a trial. There wouldn't have been a discussion about it. And I'm not saying we go back to those things. I'm saying that we somehow, you sent me down a path. You sent me down a path, brother. I mean, we have to go back to having a little more chlorine in our environments. We have to go back to shaming bad behavior and not supporting it because we're attached to this political party. We're attached to this group. We like their TV show. And so we do need to thin the herd, not from killing them, putting them on a stake and making them a part of a totem pole, but just from a societal perspective and start shaming those things. You bought a new car. Why? Like Brother Chris was talking about, feeling bad about using gas. I feel the same way. I mentioned before, I made a deal with myself. You can't see, I got my big truck right there. I'm not going to trade in my truck until I buy an electric car. I will at least buy a hybrid or an electric car. I will not buy another gas fueled car. Because what's the point? Like, I can feel bad about cutting the grass this morning, and I did. I feel bad about it. I can feel bad about it, but why? You know, everywhere I see in my life, I can try to do better. I'm going to try to do better. Let me try to read the comments as we go. Debbie's saying, I don't think they hate the truth. I think we are afraid of the implications of what happens. Right. And to feel disempowered rather than uplifted by it. If you have the truth and feel impotent to influence or change, it's too painful. Yeah. I don't think they hate the truth. I think we're afraid of it. The implications. And that makes perfectly good sense because, man, I mean, when we know it's true, you got to act on it, don't you? You got to act on it. And it's those implications, you know, and it's not just us and me and my job and making a whole lot of money. If I'm like a financial planner on Wall Street and I'm making a lot of money and I accept the truth that my job is directly attached to warfare and robbing and murder, I can't really be an anti-war activist. I can't talk to my anti-war friends if I really embrace the entire truth. So I'll kind of find a way to be complicit. I'll kind of find a way to fudge it. And I'm not talking about financial planners. I'm not talking about bankers. Again, we all support this in our own ways, but in your own way, in your own mirror, take in the truth and make your own changes based on it. Don't worry about the implications because the next generation is more important than us anyway. The kids, what they have to deal with is significantly more important than any challenges we need to face from the implications of the truth, which is why, you know, people say, you know, it always comes back down to some of my friends. I have friends who are still trying to turn me against other friends. You know, why are you supporting white nationalists? Why are you supporting MMT? Why are you defending Trump? Why are you, you know, and it's just like, because they hold part of the truth, right? The universal truth, not your truth, not your selective truth, not my comfortable selective truth, but the real truth. And so I posted it the other day, which was, here's the truth. Here's an ugly truth. I asked, I said, well, you know, okay, so you want to support the Black community. Okay, I got Brother Emrys. Let me say this, brother. We're going to talk. Welcome to the house. You know, you want to support the Black community. And it's like, okay, that's great, of the poor community, the minorities, whatever. And I said, okay, let me ask you a question. Who puts more of them in prison? Is it the KKK? Is it the white nationalists? Or is it the Democrats and the Republicans? You know, who should you really be after? But anyway, hey, brother, what's going on, man? We need to have a conversation. How you been?
Good. How you been?
All right. We've never been formally introduced, but we've seen each other rounded about on the thread. I always appreciate a lot of the deep things you have to say. So let's talk, man. What's going on in our world? What can we do to kind of pull things back and fix a lot of this nonsense?
In regard to the Black community, you mean?
No. I want to know. I want to know all communities. I care. I don't think that you can care about one community without addressing all of them. And so just in terms of where the world's going, what are your thoughts on where the world's going? I think the only thing I'll say on that one also is that if you actually effectively address the problems of poor people in this world, it will help all poor people. And I think we shouldn't really focus in on one community, one religion, one group, the barrio, the trailer park, the ghetto, or any of that. I think we need to focus on a solution that's universal so we can have the momentum and the numbers needed to make something true happen.
Well, the first thing that, and this isn't just poor neighborhoods. Well, poor neighborhoods are mostly affected. Churches. People need to stop giving money to churches without having some say in what the church is going to do with that money.
Ooh.
Every year, especially in Black communities, billions of dollars are given in church tithes. Billions.
You're right.
And
billions.
No any idea what gets done with it. And then when you have different church committees getting together, you find out that they're putting it in a bank to do something else than assist the people that are in that community.
But the people don't need assistance, brother, do they? Don't the church needs a new wing? It needs to be a mega church. It needs a gold chandelier. It needs gotta get the floors redone. Oh, I'm always worried when y'all do this. I don't think y'all should live stream while you're driving. I see I can get the brother to park. I'm not sure what just happened.
Something happened. But
I'm always worried when I see someone driving and but anyway, I won't go there. So but you're right. You and I are spot on when it comes to these mega churches and what happens with the money. Is it helping people? But this is the whole co-opting of religion thing that I like to talk about, which is, I think that we had some sort of spiritual something that happened a long time ago, and people say it's aliens, they say it's multidimensional, whatever, but these creatures gave us these commandments and these ideas of spirituality. And men, once they realized that I think they could control other people with these things, they created religions and they wrote books. And maybe some of those books were close to some of the things that happened in the past, but they were co-opted and canonized to control people. And so what happens in the communities, and it's the poor white community, poor black community, it's poor Hispanic community, it's Mexican. I mean, it's everywhere you go, it's the same thing. They give their tithe because they convince you if you give this money to God, that something good, karma, right? Something good is going to come back to you. And the reality is that you're not giving that money to God. And I'm not saying for people not to pay their tithes. And I don't think that's what you're saying. I think you're saying they need to have control in what happens with it. And for me, I'm going to go a little further than that. I'm going to say you need to make sure that you're giving your money to this God thing and not to a bunch of men who want careers and women on a church board and a big church so they can retire well and their kids can live good, because that's no different than what the billionaires are doing.
Well, what you got to realize is all churches in the United States are 501c3 regulated, which means they are considered a nonprofit organization, but they also have an indenture agreement with the government to where they can't tell you the absolute truth. And here's what the absolute truth is. Tithes are not money. Tithes are food, fruits, vegetables, potatoes, stuff like that, given to the temple priests so that they can eat. That's what tithes are. Has nothing to do with money. God doesn't need anybody's money. He doesn't need it.
Are you sure? It could be rough times in heaven, brother. Are you sure?
But it's not about giving to God. And they like to, like you said, kind of trick people into and guilt trip them into doing that kind of thing. But what it really does is, and if people pay attention, you can actually go and get from the IRS, what is it? Statements from your churches, see what they're doing with your money.
Oh, really?
Yes, you can. But what people really need to do is, it's great that everybody wants to, give to the pastor, kind of give back to whoever's feeding them spiritually, I guess, if you want to call it. But you got to make an agreement with the pastor. When I give you this money, you're using it only for this. We're not doing that. We're just putting it in the plate, and it's considered abandoned. And anything that's considered abandoned can be used for any purpose. So when you're putting it in the offering plate or the abandonment plate, you're essentially saying, do whatever the hell you want with this money. And you shouldn't be doing that. Second thing you should be doing is, if you're going to donate to a 501c3 charity, why are you not writing it off on your taxes?
Good point.
You're investing in it.
Good point. And I'll tell you my perspective. So I used to be on the board of two churches. So I've seen the inner workings, and while a lot of good people are in those positions on those boards, a lot of what happens with your money is you give your money And the board, whether it's the deacons, the trustees, the pastor, they all get together and they talk about what the money's going to be used for. And I think that is a way to operate. And I think that actually came from the Romans, that whole central management type of structure of things. You still don't really have much say in what happens with the money. At the end of the day, the board is doing it. And like paying your taxes, Congress, they can be good people. But as a group, they're beholden to their retirement. They're beholden to what they're trying to save up for their children. They're beholden to kind of keep that organization going. And a church board works in a similar fashion. You're giving your money. They're making a decision that's not only based in what's good for the community. Hopefully that's a consideration. But a lot of times it's the greatest consideration of what's best for them, their pastor, and their future. And so I don't know that I have a great answer for it. I do know that a lot of churches do a lot of good. I remember when I was involved in the churches I liked the most were the small ones. I found that the bigger they got, the more money they had, the more corrupt I think that they were, the more they acted like a government than anything else. The smaller churches that were poor, they could barely pay the electric bill. They tended to understand. One of the things I used to say, brother, I'll say this is, I used to tell people is you have all this faith in God and but your church board doesn't. You should let them have faith in God too. Don't pay your 10% tithe. You pay because if you're still going to church and you're still paying these monies and doing this, pay what you can. Pay what you feel led to pay. Don't pay their 10%. Mainly because you want the church board to have faith too. When the church board when they're struggling for money, they're going to be praying for money too. But when they know that they're getting an exact 10%, they can do planning based on exactly what you're going to give. And they'll act more like a business than a religious group anyway.
Well, yeah, everything's business. Nothing's personal in that way. It's
business.
Really have a commercial, like a personal connection with the church and not a commercial connection are the people that are in the congregation. You're being sold something that you will never see in this lifetime, and you're paying a ridiculous price for it. Another thing is whenever they need money for this and that and the other, they come to you. Well, whenever you need something, they tell you to go to God.
So, I love what you just said.
So why is it that the pastor has more faith in me? I don't go to church. Why does the pastor have more faith in me that I'm going to feed him than he does in God? Yes. Sounds like I should be trusting in me.
Yes. That's and that is spot on. You're not forcing them to trust in God. And I think churches that force their pastors and their deacon boards and everybody to trust in God a little more, be a little more impoverished, the better. You make it a bureaucracy, you make it a business, you give it a lot of wealth. It's just like a government, right? What is the saying? Power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. If you want your church to do well, you probably need a small church. You know what I found? I found that small churches were forced to be active in the community because they wanted people to come through the door. So they would go out and they would take food and they would go and help the homeless. And they had a lot more local ministries where they were helping because they needed the people who lived directly around them to actually walk to their church. And they do a lot of good. But when they get too big, then they can start helping people, not just in the local community, but at a distance, further and further, and to a point where they don't really have to help anybody. And they don't have to pull you in the door to give your tithe because that money's coming in anyway.
Right. You got old grandma sitting there watching Joel Osteen on TV, sending $500 seeds to Joel Osteen every month.
And you have no idea what he's doing.
Uh-huh.
Was it Jim Baker? Jim Baker with the hookers? Is that Jim? Yeah.
Well, I mean, he is investing your seed. He's just not investing it for you. Give a $500 seed. I need a third plane.
Oh my gosh. He's injecting his seed. But, and it, to me, and it's not a religion thing. I don't want anyone to think I'm attacking religion. I'm not attacking religion. I actually consider myself a Christian. I just don't consider myself believing a lot of the dogma that I think people take in. When I look at something and it goes against those 10 commandments, then I say, you know what, let me hit you with a theory, brother. Let me hit you with a theory. Here's my theory. My theory is we had these natural laws, right? I think maybe the atheists at the time, the natural law people, they got it. Leave people alone, let them self-determine, take care of people, love them, don't kill them, all these basic things. And a lot of people didn't get it. And so I think some sort of spiritual collection, alien, something came down and said, listen, you guys got to adopt these basic principles or you're going to go extinct. The atheists get it. The rest of y'all don't get it. They gave us some natural laws.
Right.
And then I think these books, which there's an awful lot of good in a lot of these books. I think a lot of them are stories. We're finding the cities that they talk about. We're finding, the science behind a lot of things, the mystical things that seem mystical. Now they seem like they're technology and quantum physics. We're finding a lot of that is true. So I'm not against anybody's book or the 8,000 different versions of the Bible or the Gita or the Quran or any of that. What I'm saying is when there's a story in there, or there is a principle that's taken out that goes against the basic foundations, if it's those 10 commandments, then that's not from your God. That's from a man. That's a man trying to get you to do something. And the greatest example right now is Israel and Palestine. They've got a lot of people convinced that murdering a bunch of poor kids is actually going to bring God back or something. And it goes against, what is it, 3, 4, 5? How many commandments are you breaking by looting a country, killing its people, killing children, judging them, not letting themselves, not putting God first, but putting your pastor first or your preachers first or this book before the spirituality that creature gave you. I think those creatures gave us spirituality. They didn't give us religions. They didn't give us the book. They gave us the concept for leave people alone and love people.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing with Israel and Palestine. There's two different kinds of Jews. There are obviously the Jews that want to keep the Torah. They want to, essentially do what you were saying, allow people to live in love and live life the way that they want to live it, but also not infringe on anybody's free will. There are Jews that are there that are actually protesting Zionism. They don't show you it on TV.
No.
But there are. They
have Facebook pages. They have websites. Absolutely.
Yeah. Here's a different sect of Jews. There's two types. There's the Jews that nobody wants to show. And then there's the, I call them the Frankian Jews. Okay. In 1666, there was a guy with the last name of Frank. He was a Jew. He claimed to be the Messiah. He had a theory that if everybody was righteous and obeyed the law 100%, the Messiah would come and dwell among us. And if everybody violated the law and was as sinful as possible, the Messiah would come and dwell among us. One would be to get us back on the right path. The other one would be, I can dwell among you now because you're righteous people. So the Frankian dogma is, it is going to be a lot harder to get everyone to be righteous than it is to get everyone to commit as much sin as possible. So why not just commit all the sin we can? That way Messiah comes quicker.
That's nuts.
And those are the people that are usually like involved in the pedophile rings and stuff.
Whoa.
Not necessarily have an interest in it, but because they are literally trying to bring the Messiah as quickly as possible.
That is heavy. And I guess what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to translate that into what I'm seeing in the Christian community and the evangelistics. Wherein, do you think at at the higher levels in the board, not the evangelists. I don't want to talk about the poor people on the bottom, because usually they're just being brainwashed or they're being controlled or given selective information. But do you think at the higher boards, the evangelists, the leaders, the pastors, the preachers, do you think that they have that same belief that, you know, outside of murdering a bunch of people, that just by rebuilding the temple, it'll bring back Jesus sooner, and that they're not fearful that this Jesus thing will come back and kill them? They just want it to come back?
That's essentially what it is, too. They've tricked Christians through, again, 501c3, since the government has the right to regulate the church doctrine through that type of nonprofit organization. They've tricked Christians into being Zionists as well. Oh, that's just Israel. God said he would always protect Israel. God said he would do this for Israel. Don't come against Israel. So they've got them trapped in that mentality as well, without realizing the fact that the scriptures also say, woe unto those who await, and not await as in like waiting for it to happen, but want it to happen. Woe unto those who await the day of the Lord.
Yeah.
So you'll hear different Christians, oh man, I can't wait for Jesus to come back and destroy all these people and blah 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 blah. Well, doesn't your Bible say, woe unto you who wants that to happen?
Yeah. And but the problem is, so Emrys, the problem is you read the Bible. That's that's your problem. Let me tell you your problem right now. I'll tell you your problem, brother. You read the Bible, and most people who go to a lot of these churches, they don't. Yeah. They're too busy. They're raising a family, they're doing everything they can, and they're trusting their pastors and their preachers to actually give them the truth. Another scripture I like that goes along that lines is, oh gosh, I forgot where it was, but it basically said that God blinded the Jews in part so the whole world could be saved, right? And so this gets back to, maybe they are some sort of a chosen people. I don't know. Are the Jews today those people? I don't know. But we know that we're not supposed to be involved in that activity. You're not supposed to rob, kill, loot, destroy. And if God blinded the Jews in part so the whole world could be saved, and now you're a Christian on the other side, you're supposed to be following Christ, which is the not murder, the not steal, the not loot, and all these things, even if the Frankian Jews are up to something and your pastor's up to, and so I don't want to go too deep down the religion thing. We can do that, but I like to look at like the root social reasons why we do the things we do. And the same problem with the evangelicals is the same problem with the leftists. It's the same problem with the Jews. It's the same problem with everybody. It's the same problem after this whole world was colonized. We keep giving our collective power, our money, our tithes, all these things to a very small group of people. Why in the world do we keep placing the trust of our entire planet, our societies, war, and human life into the hands of very few people?
Because we're waiting on a savior to come and take it back from them. We have a mentality. That's where it all stems from. Having a I can't do this on my own, or as the scriptures say, or not as the scriptures say, but as Christian pastors like to say, you can't do it on your own. You can't keep the law on your own. That's why Jesus had to die for you. That's why Jesus has to come back and save you. You can't do it on your own, and it's horseshit.
Yeah. Well, it's man taking the place of God, right? So, whatever people believe about God, to me, I think it's just sociology. It's psychology. Right?
It is.
These men, these small select few, they've taken over God and they own God. And now they can get you to do the most devastating things to other people that your God would hate, because now they are your God. You're not actually worshiping your God. You're worshiping these men, whether it's a government or it's the leadership of your board. And to me, I think it's just psychology, but you're right. They do teach that. They do teach, just sit back and be in pain and wait pay your tithe. It's okay. God is recognizing your tithe. And so maybe the question people need to ask themselves is, are you really giving money to your God? Are you getting something in return, right? It's, to me, I do believe in Christ and I believe in God, but we had a saying a little while back, which is, how do you know an orange is sweet if you don't taste it?
Right.
If you're giving money to a church and you're not seeing things manifested in your life that are positive that this God is supposed to do for you, it might just be that God is not at that church. It might be that the people who run that church, it might even be that religion, that God is not there also. But then we can go to Revelations too. And in Revelations, it basically says at a certain time that the church is going to be dead, that the church is going to, the bride of, the bride of Christ is going to turn against Christ, and the majority of people who actually say that they're Christian, they're not actually going to heaven. The path to heaven it's going to be a path to heaven and a highway to hell. And so these real simple, basic understandings, if you know the majority of people who say they're Christian will not be going to heaven, then why would you go along with the majority's teachings?
Well, that's why I always laugh when, like, Jehovah's Witnesses will come to my door. And Jehovah's Witnesses are the 144,000 people that are going to heaven. And I always ask them, anytime they come over, it's different people every time. And I know I make them mad, but I just want them to be able to recognize you're being fucking duped. Oh, I'm sorry, I cussed. You're being duped.
No, that's okay. I don't curse, and that's my indoctrination. But also, I try not to offend people. But that's okay. You come on, we talk. You can. But they are duped. And I think Sister Joan just said that she doesn't believe any of this. And, I'll share, Emrys, if you and I had this conversation 15 years ago, I wouldn't have believed any of this either. I wouldn't have believed that. I was so, and I'm not saying, Sister Joan, that you're indoctrinated. Well, actually, I am. I'm sorry. We all are. We all are indoctrinated. I think the things that begin to crack this for me, one was I think Brother Jack mentioned, Brother James, the Sumerian tablets, right? The Sumerian tiles that they found, where they found the books, a lot of the books of the Bible, and the story of Noah and the story of Genesis, right? And even the town in Gilgamesh, right? So you look at the story of Noah and Gilgamesh, and the town that Gilgamesh was from is in the Bible. And so when you start to link these things together, and then the Dead Sea Scrolls, they found it, right? And in church, what they used to say, oh, well, we found the Dead Sea Scrolls, and what's in the current King James Bible today is what was in the Dead Sea Scrolls. And that is a blatant, flat out lie. That is a complete lie. There are books in the Dead Sea Scrolls that aren't anywhere near the Bible. The book of Gigantus and the book of, the book of, the guy who went on the UFO, went to space, came back down. Somebody who posted. I forgot his name. The only guy in the Bible didn't die. I forgot. I read most of it. But the point is this. When they found the Dead Sea Scrolls, they say that, a lot of the scriptures were similar. But the fact of the matter is, we know that those stories go a lot further back. So they go back to the Sumerian days. And so the theory is that a lot of the people who walked around, I think it was Abraham who authored most of the Old Testament, he found these tablets and they could read the language, and they took a lot of those stories, or those stories were handed down. And of course, it's like the thing that we used to do in grade school, where that you'd whisper in your friend's ear and he'd whisper in his friend's ear, whisper, and it goes around the whole classroom circle and it comes back and they tell the teacher, and what he said is completely different than what he said. Enoch, Brother James put it. Thank you. The book Enoch. That, I think, is what we're a victim of. And so, Joan, I'm not saying believe us. I'm not saying anything like that. I'm just simply saying that if I had this conversation with Emrys 15 years ago, I wouldn't be open to any of it. I was completely locked in that indoctrination. And I like the scripture that says, study to show thyself approved. Right. You're supposed to constantly research and study everything in this world that you can find, because God gave us a brain Well, I think that he took 98% monkey genes to make it, but that's another story. And you're supposed to constantly try to uncover the truth. And the other thing I'll share with you, Joan, is in Jeremiah, when it talks about there are many things that will be revealed in time that have not yet been revealed. And Christ saying that greater things I have done, you will do. And Christ was a God. And so if Christ was a God and he said that you will do greater things than it did, it's basically he's saying that he believes in Gnosticism. He's saying that we're all gods, which leads you back down the whole path of spirituality. You know, and so the only thing I try to do, Brother Emrys, I try to get people to, I don't want to argue with them and fight with them. I'm just kind of sharing my voyage and understanding we really don't know as much as we think we do, and we should try not to be controlled by people who control all of this.
Yeah, absolutely. When billions and billions of people subscribe to one specific religious book, you are literally saying, I'm refusing to have my own spiritual experience, and I'm going to trust in this person's experience that I've never met in my whole life.
Yeah.
And that's another portion of just that victim mentality, not doing anything for yourself. It's like that painting that I think it was Michelangelo made, where God was reaching out and man was just kind of like barely reaching. That's essentially what that is. You don't realize that, even as the scriptures say, know ye not that ye are gods, but you're just like,
And don't put any gods before me. What do you mean any other gods? What do you mean don't put any other gods before me?
Right.
There are hints all over the Bible. And once again, I do like to talk, and I see Joan mentioned as well, is that it feels like we're bashing other people. We're definitely not bashing anybody. I'm watching Emrys around the internet, and what I'm saying is that we're sharing a spiritual journey, right? And we're sharing our experiences. And the only way we all learn as a collective, if we have respect for each other, respect for what each other believes, but then constantly share back and forth.
Well, and my goal isn't to bash anybody either, because I was a Christian for 13 years. So if I'm bashing Christians, then I'm a hypocrite, because I was one for 13 years. I was completely zombified for those 13 years. The only thing that I really want is for people to do as the scriptures would say: chew the meat and spit out the bones. Take what applies to you, take what makes sense to you, and leave the other stuff that doesn't. If it makes you uncomfortable and it's challenging your beliefs, that's a good thing.
Right. It's iron sharpening iron. Brother, it's funny that we could go back and forth all day with scripture. We could have a little church, have a little fun. But an iron sharpening iron. And what does that mean is that, iron, if you take one piece of iron, it's dull by itself. But if you get two people with competing ideas, you can sharpen it into a very sharp sword. And I think this is the message that these spiritual creatures, and I believe in all of them. I think that whether you go back to Shiva or Buddha, I think Brother James was talking about Enki and Enlil. I think a lot of crazy things have happened in our past on this planet. And the only way, it's all the same. The only way we actually get to know what's really going on outside of the colonizing groups that took over the whole earth, these evil men, is we have to sharpen iron with everybody. Everybody. That's the only way we expand our knowledge and we become increasingly spiritual and more intellectual and understand how our world works, is we need to take in data from everybody's experiences.
Well, that's what the whole idea was of creating gods. It creates an allegorical connection for other people to learn different aspects about not only the human body, but the human consciousness, spirituality, even the Bible that everybody gets handed. They're sitting in the church pews and everything. They're sitting in your face. Nobody ever thinks to open the Bible and use the allegory of the Bible in a courtroom setting. Nobody ever thinks to do that. Well, why not? If Jesus says, I am the Word of God, and I'm the way, the truth, and the life, why would you not use that allegory for every aspect of your life? Like, for instance, in law, Jesus, because he was crucified on the cross, he signifies a negotiable instrument being executed, offsetting the debt. Jesus died for my sins, offsetting the debt in a courtroom. But nobody ever thinks to use it that way because they're too stuck on the religious aspect of the devil's coming, his son's coming to rule the world, and Jesus one day is going to come back and save everybody. You're going to be one of those people that end up in a FEMA camp if you keep believing in that nonsense.
Right. Which I'll camp onto that with it. Which, if you go back and you look at Jesus in politics, Jesus wasn't a very political person, right?
No.
Jesus, he said, "Render unto Caesar what is Caesar's, and render unto God what is God's." And so Jesus never went to politicians and says, "Listen, we need this law. All right, what we need to do is we got to stop people from having guns. We got to stop people from doing drugs. In which Jesus heated the herb, as it says. And so I'll leave the jury out to people and what herb Jesus went back when he was meditating that he was heating. I think it's one of the few that are illegal. But I think that we're so off the rails in terms of Christianity, conservatism, evangelicals, because they're not actually doing what Jesus would do. It's like the saying, what would Jesus do? I don't think you need to ask that. I think that you have enough stories in that book to say, no, what did Jesus do? Did Jesus go to homosexuals and chastise them? Did Jesus go to hookers and chastise? Did Jesus go to other religions and say, you're going to hell? I think that Jesus loved people. He fed them. He took care of them. He stood back, and he never conscripted a government to go enforce his thoughts or his ideologies on anybody. And this is where I'm saying that we're so off the rails in terms of anything Jesus would have anything to do with. But people got to think for themselves, and they're not. They're letting their religious leaders think for them.
Well, Jesus stood against the religious people. The religious people were the ones that were also government leaders. And it's the same way today. Your government itself is a religion. You pay your taxes / tithes. You have police officers / temple priests looking for sinners. You go to court and you have a defense attorney or a mediator, and you have a prosecutor or the accuser or Hasatan, Satan.
Yes.
The judge is God. It's all set up in a religious way. That's why the 173rd Continental Congress declared the Bible to be the Word of God and also the foundation of American law. Because you can use the Bible if you know what you're looking for in a courtroom and set yourself free. You can, so quote unquote, resurrect yourself just as Christ did. Pick up your cross and follow me. And then he rose again 3 days afterwards. You can do the same things that Christ did. I tell you the truth, you shall do greater things than I. And by the way, that herb that you were talking about earlier, it's the same burning bush that Moses consulted.
You're either going to go to cannabis or you're going to go to the acacia. Which one?
I'm going with cannabis.
Okay. All right. I'm with you, brother. That's what I believe. That's what I believe too. And because there are, I looked at the evidence a long time ago, but there was, it was the name of something else in the Bible that they related back to cannabis. But the point is that, people are so far, and I like your example of religion and the judge being God, right? Because why did the judge wear a robe, right? When the judge walks in the room, everybody stands, you show this reverence, this great honor to this judge thing. And so that's one of the greatest examples of men replacing God and now you worshiping men. Brother James said something. He's nailing a whole bunch of stuff here today. He said he also said settle out of court, right? And that's another thing in the Bible. The Bible says that, right, if knock my mic down, if somebody offends you, that you take them to the church. You don't take them to the court. you take them to the church. And so if someone offends you, you're supposed to be going to your pastor, your deacon, say, you know what, Sister married and said this to me and blah, 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 and I don't like it. And not to have a legal proceeding, you know, but some sort of if it's a brother or sister within the church, and if somebody outside the church offends you, you're supposed to forgive them, turn the other cheek, and walk away.
Well, there's a reason why that a courtroom is set up in the same way as a church. The judge and the pastor both sit at a podium. There's a gate up front where sinners come and plead, or some people will come and kneel and pray. You'll have people on both sides of the aisle. It's set up the same way as a church for a reason. Because It's a religious society.
Well, it's control. So this is what it all gets down to. It's controlling people. It's controlling people, giving them this idea, utilizing psychology to convince them that what this judge thing says is the word of God, and they go along with it. So walking people into prisons over cannabis, invading country, you know, the Supreme Court, the judge, the president. And I seriously think we are in a time where people completely don't even know whatever that God thing is. And they have no relationship with it, but the vast majority are just worshiping governments.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. They create gods initially to be a tool to teach things, right? Well, then all of a sudden, people with religious mindsets started following it religiously and wanting others to do the same. Now, I won't say that all of these people initially had a religious mindset. I think some of them were pretending to be religious for the sake of control. But gods are a form of propaganda as well. Well, my God's going to destroy your God just like he destroyed them. Well, now I'm terrified because their God really did destroy them, so it seems like their God keeps their word. So it was a form of propaganda used and turned against people, even though it was supposed to be a form of allegorical teaching, just like the Ark of the Covenant. If you look at the Ark of the Covenant and then you look at this part of your brain right here, it's shaped the same exact way, or not your brain, but your skull. It's shaped exactly the same way. If you look at, like, where does it say Christ was crucified? The place of the skull, right? So you got your two eyes here, the left and right, criminal, and your third eye here, Christ in the middle, place of the skull. So your Christ consciousness is buried beneath the place of the skull.
You're tapping into some stuff there, brother. Are you alluding to the pineal gland and but what is your position on psychedelics?
The only position I have on psychedelics is I wish somebody would, or I wish everybody would do them in their lives at least one time. If you could do it one time, whether that be mushrooms or, you know, whatever works best for you, whatever is the most non-harmful, non-addicting thing you can do it. Because I did it one time, and that's when I left religion. That's when I realized that the entire Bible is somebody's mushroom trip.
That's interesting. What did you do? Do you mind me asking?
What did I do?
Yeah, the DMT or ayahuasca?
I did shrooms.
Okay.
Yeah, it was amazing, actually.
Okay. So and to I never have. I find it fascinating the people who have and the experiences they have, how it changes them later. I think someone said, Holland said, religion is the biggest killer on the planet. And while in that, I'm not sure I agree with that. I know the biggest killer on the planet has been malaria. That's number one. And number two, it is dumb people. That's what I'm going to say. I'm going to say, yes. Really, you know, they came in the names of different religions at different times, and you've got, you know, different kings at different times. I think the biggest killer on the planet is a lack of critical thought. I think when we don't actually think critically and we're willing to pick up swords and guns and drones and go kill for a king, I think that's the biggest killer. But on that topic, I find it fascinating what you're saying, because you look at how cannabis is illegal and psychedelics are illegal, and everybody I know, and I haven't done either, but everybody I know, they say that they both mellow you out. They both give you experiences. They both give you more of a sense of drive and meaning in life, wherein alcohol is legal and alcohol makes you reckless. It makes you more violent. You beat your wife. You do the things that a lot of times end up invoking the laws for control. So I do find it highly interesting. And I look at the pineal gland. I look at what people say about it, how it, what it's suspected that it releases DMT that takes you into these psychedelic states, and possibly that, the relationship we have with this is it connects us to this God thing or this other realm or this other dimension or whatever. And to me, it's very plausible that you would ban these things, because if you're a government or a king or lords and you want to be God, you have to separate people from that. You just can't take the scriptures and the books and guide them. You need to sever the ability for this God spirituality thing to actually happen. So you got to outlaw it. You do got to put, what is it they say is chlorine calcifies the pineal gland. You have to shut off that contact that people have with that thing.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. They make money off of the stupidity. Well, I don't want to say anybody's stupid, but like the being in the dark about things. They make money off of your willful ignorance. Let's say that. Because nobody's really, I don't want to say anybody's stupid, because nobody really is stupid. Everybody has the same capacity to know what I know. Everybody has the same capacity to know what you know. And nobody's stupid. We all have the ability to learn. So we have this willing ignorance, and that's what they're trying to keep in the loop. Because if we're willfully ignorant, just like in Roman times, where it was basically a thing where you didn't care, you didn't ask what the government was doing, you had no business knowing what the government was doing. So they keep the willing ignorance going. Because when you have bread and circuses to look forward to, you will not revolt.
Exactly.
And also, when it's much more than just like a superficial third dimensional mentality of that as well. It's also going to keep you from ascending and going to the next dimension, going to other places. That's something they don't want you to do either, because these people are, how should I say it? They're predators. They're succubuses. They want to keep you here to feed off of your energy. What am I trying to say? Earth is basically a place where all of the different life forms start. It's a place of free will.
Okay.
So humans, grow into gods and all this and that and the other. They all evolve. Animals evolve as well. Animals, at some point in time, after we're all gone, they will, have like a humanoid type of intelligence at some point. At least that's what I believe. But we have to be the first ones to go. There's people that want to keep us here, because if we start to ascend, they can no longer feed off of us anymore. And also, if we start to ascend, that means they're on the bottom, and now they're the ones that get fed off of. So it's controlling the food chain as well, controlling the hierarchy, not just in an earthly way, but in a spiritual way as well. So they're attacking you on both fronts.
Right. And it makes sense. It's a really deep thought. I kind of think along the same as myself. I think that I do ask myself, like, why are we here? How does this place make any sense for anything? You look up and you look at I spend a lot of time with like looking at, Hubble data and the Kepler and, the planets that are out there. And it's obvious that, I mean, we're in a very massive galaxy amongst infinite number amounts of galaxies, and there are planets everywhere. There are planets around every star, and it's ever expanding. And trying to make sense of that, it does seem as though we are the starting point of something, that we're possibly here to learn empathy, to learn how to get along, to learn how to do those commandment things that the religions seem to not want to respect anymore. And what they do with holy wars and crusades and all this colonialism and imperialism. I think it makes perfectly good sense that we're trying to get to a place where we ascend and we become something greater. And if you fail in your life and you perhaps don't get to a place where you can learn to be somewhat of a Jesus, to be somewhat of an emissary on another planet, evolving the next, creatures that are coming up and working together, trying to figure out what love is and what kindness is and what empathy is. I mean, I think it actually makes a lot of sense to me.
Well, and if you read the scripture, not only does Jesus never tell anybody what his name is, but he never says that he is going to save anybody. Never once does he do it. He shows you exactly what you need to do. He says, pick up your cross and follow me, meaning pay attention to what I'm going to do. Because if you want to go where I'm going to go, you're going to need to do what I'm going to do. So pay attention. You're supposed to be doing all of this yourself. Faith without works is dead. Faith is trust being acted out.
And most people don't work. They don't act it out. I say most people don't work. They don't act it out. They pay their tithe and they go to work.
Because they've been told that you don't have to do anything. You're never going to be good enough anyway. Jesus paid it all for you. Which is another that everybody needs to look in on a deeper aspect too, is, when it says Jesus, when they say Jesus paid it all, why are we not, whenever we go into court, saying, oh, I'm Jesus Christ? If Jesus paid it all, why am I not saying whenever I go to court, when they ask me what my name is, they ask you your name so they know what account to charge. Because going to a court is just like going to a bank.
Wow.
So whenever you ask for a name, if Jesus paid it all, and my sins are covered by the blood of Jesus, why am I not using the name Jesus in court? Why am I not putting it on his account?
Because in central banking, we trust.
You can do that way too.
I mean, that's what it is. That's how the whole thing is set up in terms of what, we're born and, we're basically allocations to a number and the ownership. We are, with admiralty laws that are we debt to the bank? We're actually assets to banks. And so maybe it's not even men that replace God. Maybe it's banks that replace God.
You are much more than an asset. They like to try to make you devalue yourself. They'll say, oh, you're just an asset to back the debt. And you are. But you are so much more than just an asset. Gods are not assets.
Right.
So if I too, know ye not that ye are gods, if I too am a god, what is God? God is just the unlimited potential to create and be. That's what we're here to do. We're here to just be and create and experience. We're not here to spread dogma to other peoples and kill them if they won't accept it. We're not here for that, because believe it or not, all paths do lead to one. I can use the same type of mentality that I'm using now with the Bible, with the Quran, or with the Talmud, or the Torah, or any of that. I can use the same type of mentality now and get to the same basic ideal that we've been talking about this whole time. We are part of that God source. All of us equally are one. If all of our being, all of our essence was to leave these bodies right now, we would go right back to the God source. So we therefore are one. We are that God source. And they want to keep you from tapping into that, because if you don't keep tapping into that, then they can tap into it for you, and they can continue to feed off of you.
It makes sense to me. I mean, I think there's so much there, and I think if people spend more time looking at, this is why I love ancient archaeology, and I love the fact that it's obvious that a lot of what the Egyptians and the Mayans and the Incans and cultures all over the world said and did is, it's largely covered up. The idea that man is like the first goat run at this, and I think all of that's important, because I think a lot of the ancients tried to leave us hints to all of this. And it's probably those hints that drove a lot of the religions and coming to be. That's why I try to always encourage people to question everything and keep questioning. Sister Jones said God is in all of us. And I believe that's to be true. I mean, God created all of us, right? And whether, it's a belief in all together, everybody's God and they all work together, fungi, Terrence McKenna type of situation, or if it's just God created everybody, if it's the whole alien, genetically engineered, ancient ancient alien theory, where God took the second chromosome and from monkeys and made a man. So to me, and it might sound crazy, but I think that it's all the same thing. I think that science is religion, religion is science. All the religions all come from the base scientific master creator species thing that we don't know where it's from. But we have to focus on what you said, which is we are not here for that. And I think that if people question, are they what their indoctrination says, what their country says, what their religion says, what their race, either they're that or there's something significantly greater. And if they know there's something significantly greater, ask yourself the question, what are you here for?
Well, and religion is initially, religion was just the stepping stone. It wasn't somewhere where you were supposed to stay. There's a reason why the scriptures say to come out of her. Her is the church. Church, or Circe. Circe is the Greek goddess of death. So whenever you go to church, you're going to the Greek goddess of death. So tomb is the womb. Once you die, you come back out of a womb. So the tomb is the womb. So when you keep going to church, you keep coming back here to this realm here. You're reincarnating over and over and over and over again until you can learn to get out of her. So religion itself is just the gate to keep the sheep in.
Yeah.
That's why they call you God's sheep. They're actually just belittling you. But once you get past religion and you realize that it's not just a religion, but it's a book of law, which is logic and wisdom, and you realize that it's allegory and you're not supposed to be taking any of it literally for the most part, then you can move into different aspects, not only just of your life, but different aspects of consciousness, different aspects of the universe. And that in itself is, I think, what the scriptures means when it says, no weapon formed against you can prosper. Because the real you isn't this. This is just the temple. You are just in your temple.
You hit some powerful things, brother. You and what Jones said. Mm-hmm. No, go ahead.
I'm sorry. If you're in your temple, right, and when Jesus said, I will rebuild this temple in 3 days, and it says he was referring to the temple of his body. He's telling you that he's going to allow them to kill him and release the true him and all of that. So Jesus, because death could not hold him, meaning he came out of her, he rose again out of the grave and ascended. So if in the same way Jesus left the church, or he left organized religion, he left the sheep pen, essentially, whenever he came back to life, after he passed that test, he reincarnated where he passed, like in a video game. So he already got out of the sheep pen. They killed him because he got out. So now he comes back from death because he didn't actually commit any sins. And really, there's very, very few sins that somebody can commit, if we're being honest. So he didn't any sin, so therefore death had to give him up. He had nothing else to learn in this, let's say, video game level. So he passed the level.
He beat the big boss at the end. He beat the big boss. He moved on, and so I like the analogy, and I want to tie what you're saying to what Joan said in human farming and fear. Right? What keeps people locked into dogmatic religions that obviously, from a tribalized group perspective, are completely in defiance with what Christ taught? Why would they stay? And it's fear. It's that tribalistic fear that I got to be in a gang and I need somebody to fight with. It's that fear that if I don't pay my tithe, I won't be able to pay my bills. I won't get my promotion. That if I don't stay on this level, I have the fear. And it gets back to human farming, right? Like when we became useful, other than food and cannibalism and eating each other, is when we could give each other the fear of not being able to survive. We could pressure you, as James said, peer pressure. We can scare you into doing what we want you to do. And they actually scare people in staying on that level. And I like how you put it and I think living my life, I think I've kind of lived that experience wherein religion exposes you, where it basically says you're not alone, that the world you were born into is a lie. And one of the things I like to joke around with pastors and ministers, when I meet them, I get into discussions, I'd say, Christianity is basically the belief in extraterrestrials. That's all it is. Because if Jesus and the aliens and the demons and the Holy Spirit and God aren't from Earth, they're not terrestrial, they're actually extraterrestrial. And that religion lines up with what you're saying, is that it exposes people to the fact that you were born here, but that is not what we are, that we are this spiritual creature, software, soul, whatever you want to call it, that's just living in these temple human cattle things. And after you get exposure to that, to religion, that you're not alone, then you need to go to the next level of seeking spirituality, which is what Christ was doing, which is what Buddha was doing, and Shiva and everybody else was on that spiritual level. So I agree with you. I think you have the perfect analogy.
Well, and the reason why those things keep being repeated over and over and over and over again under different types of names, they're all the same people. They keep being repeated to us generation after generation after generation because we're still not getting the message. Jesus is Krishna, is Horus. They're all the same person. You just aren't getting it. So they have to keep repeating the lesson. You keep failing 5th grade, so you keep having to come back to elementary school.
That makes sense. That makes good sense. But I think people get lost with that because of closed-mindedness. I think it's hard for people to accept that we don't know as much as we think we know, that we're actually on a journey. And what is the other scripture that says is to seek God? Why would God say to seek God if we already found God? If your pastor found God, your minister, your church, your whatever, if they found God, then there's no reason to seek God. And I think that was the whole point, is that we're supposed to be on this lifelong journey of seeking God. And where is God? Like even you said and Jones said, is that, and others people in the room were saying, is that God is in you. So you're seeking God in other people. You're seeking God in other religion or faith. You're seeking God in the atheist. You're seeking God in the scientist. You're seeking God wherever God might be, in different books, not just the one you want to read, but in all of them. That's the only way you'll actually find God, because God is in everything. God's in a rock. It's in a leaf. It's in all of this. Because in my opinion, I think that God is this genetic engineering thing. I think that it goes around and it alters DNA and it changes. I think there's probably God with a big G. Maybe there's God with a little g. Maybe God with a big G, where all of this stuff, universe, is on his laptop and he just pressed power, calls the Big Bang if you want. Everything came to be, the software is running. Because you know that theory that we're all in a simulation, and we can be these little G's where we go around and do the things that all these other creatures did. But we're in this big, massive simulation that's constantly increasing and growing and spreading. And your one job is to continue to seek the person who pressed the button and went bang.
Yeah. Somebody that you'll never get to.
Right. Someone you'll never get to, but you keep seeking. And what's at the end of that journey? I think only a fool would say that they know. I think that only a fool would say that they know really what God is. I think only a fool would say that their religion is God, or that God is in a book that they have, or that God is in their building. I think to a large degree, we have to change how we talk to each other. You know, I suspect that we get nowhere if we continue along this path of human ignorance and arrogance that we seem to be trapped in. The more we accept the reality, which is the more we figure out what do they say? Every 10 years, we realize how little we knew the 10 years before. And so if we know that we really are this lost of a species, then nobody can take any arrogant positions. And it's just a matter of loving each other, talking to each other. And hopefully you love somebody enough and you care for them enough, they care for you enough. They'll tell you the things that they know, and you might actually find a little piece of God in them.
Yeah, well, and I'm going to say this one last. I'll leave you with this one last thing here, because I've been at the gas station for about an hour. I was actually.
All right, I see you walking around. I appreciate that, brother. I'm sorry I pulled this on you. I wanted to talk for a little bit this morning. Brother Chris could only come on; he had to run, and so I've been meaning to talk. You've been meaning, and we'll finish. We're just this is just the start. I appreciate your content. I appreciate your brain. I appreciate the God in you and what you share in various places. And so we're definitely going to continue our conversation. So I'll go ahead and let you have the last couple words, and we'll close it out.
Word. So I think that, and then again, this is just my theory. I don't know for sure yet, and I probably never will. But I honestly think that God is just our ultimate divine self. And the reason why I think that is this. There's scripture in the New Testament that says, first comes death and then the judgment. Now go all the way back to the beginning of the Bible, to the Garden of Eden. God told Adam and Eve not to eat of the fruit of the knowledge of good and evil, because the day that you shall eat of it, you shall surely die. So first came death because they ate of the fruit. Now, if you've really read the Bible, answer this honestly. Who judged Adam and Eve?
Wasn't it God?
God never judged them once. They told on themselves. They judged themselves before God even had a chance to talk to them.
So he inflicted the punishment, but you're saying they actually judged themselves, that we did this bad thing because we trusted that you said this. Okay, I see what you're saying. Mm-hmm.
And that's the way our criminal justice system works as well. If there's no evidence to be had, then that means that you had no evidence. Everything evidence-wise is provided by you in some way, shape, or form. So if I killed somebody and I left fingerprints on a knife, that evidence was provided by me. Otherwise, there was no way that they could have proven that I did it. And in the same way, they were so fearful, so guilty, so regretful about doing what they did, and they saw their nakedness or their shame, that they judged themselves first. So you judge yourself. First comes death, which is shame, regret, misery, all of that, spiritual death. Then comes the judgment. Because if you have the fruit of the Spirit, which is love, patience, kindness, all of that, you're not spiritually dead. But once you feel shame for something you did, or regret, or fear, or any of that, that is only when you can be judged. What do people always hear cops say? Oh, you look nervous. What are you nervous for?
Yeah. You're
judging yourself before that cop even pulls you over. Because you have this mentality of, oh shit, I just got pulled over. What did I do? Right? And in the same way,
I'm nervous before I get pulled up. Before I get pulled over, I'm nervous.
Right. And in the same way, when you walk into a courtroom, what is the first thing that happens? You get really nervous. This is a courtroom. This is where stuff happens. This is where I'm either guilty or I'm innocent. And if I don't know for sure that I'm innocent, then I must be guilty. And in the same way, in the Garden of Eden, they didn't know for sure that they had actually done something wrong. But they know that they saw their nakedness. And so they hid. They were afraid.
Powerful thing. I'm going to have to chew on that for a little bit, brother. Let me chew on that, because I think you're hitting on a lot of things, and this is going to be an extended discussion. But you're hitting on consent and all the delicious stuff that we like to talk about. And it makes a lot of good sense. So I'm going to go ahead and let you get to where you're going. I appreciate you taking the time. I appreciate everybody keeping an open mind. These discussions are about sharing. They're not about conflict. They're not about disagreement. We all have to try to maintain, I think, a sense of humility as much as we can, and just process and listen to everybody. I have to say this. I don't agree with anybody 100% of the time. I don't agree with Emrys 100% of this time, but I want to pick his brain because he's a very smart individual. He's seen things I haven't seen. He's been places I haven't, and he's thought things I haven't. And so I think this is how we move forward. Iron has to sharpen iron. We have to share with each other, but we have to have that respect, and we got to have love for each other. Otherwise, we can't get to that. So we'll certainly continue the discussion, and we'll see where this leads. You gave me a lot of things to think about, brother. I shall think about that. I appreciate you taking time out your busy day. Appreciate everybody who joined in, and you guys have a wonderful Sunday.
You too.
All right. Take care, brother. Love you. Bye-bye.
Man.